When generally considering the best sports games in the history of gaming as a whole, what games do you generally gravitate towards? For many, it is the obvious choice of EA's sports catalog, with hits including the Madden titles and 2K titles that have remained iconic ever since their debut in the late 80s and early 90s. For a small minority of others who are familiar with the gaming scene, it may be the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, which have been a classic amongst those who enjoyed titles on the N64 or early PlayStation models. However, despite all of these sports games being of extreme quality and interesting in their own right, I personally believe that there is a hidden gem that is not seen amongst the majority of the public that goes unnoticed almost every single time when discussing the quality of sports games. And that game is Super Mario Sluggers. Now, while this may be a inherently random and borderline illogical decision on the surface level, in this video I will explain in detail as to why this is one of the best sports games in the entire history of the market as a whole. This game has developed to become one of the most invigorating and genuinely fun and competitive games we have ever seen despite its initial appearance, and has become a personal favorite of mine because of it. So join me as we discuss everything associated with Super Mario Sluggers and why I believe that it is one of the best sports games in the modern era of gaming. Before we talk about anything related to Super Mario Sluggers, I want to dive into how it was ultimately crafted and where its motivations mainly stem from prior to its release in 2008. The predecessor console, the Nintendo GameCube, had a wide array of games from its prime years that could be described as some of the best video games of the console era, and some that could honestly be completely thrown away due to their unimportance. Released in late 2001, the Nintendo GameCube would launch with honestly one of the more lackluster selection of games, with only the most notable games including Luigi's Mansion, Super Monkey Ball, and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 being a key impact of this launch. Due to this and a multitude of other factors, the GameCube's high ambition to be one of the most popular consoles that had ever hit the market at the time would be completely shot down, as the sales for the consoles would reach record lows for the time of its release. Additionally, another fatal flaw of this console was the fact that the more popular games that many look back to when discussing the GameCube, such as Super Mario Sunshine, Mario Kart Double Dash, and The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, would all release in a wide spread of releases over the years after the launch of the console, and all of the hype had died down from the system, with the games releasing in 2002, 2003, and 2002 once again, respectively. All of these factors would ultimately see the hype for the GameCube to be one of the worst Nintendo had ever seen, and would lead to the console being statistically the worst in terms of console sales at the time of its inception, which would heavily hide some hidden gems within the catalog of this console itself. One of these games that was released extremely late in the life cycle of this console was one of the most underrated games on the GameCube, Mario Superstar Baseball. Coming into the game extremely late in the life cycle of the GameCube in the summer of 2005, Mario Superstar Baseball would be a diamond in the rough for GameCube games that would provide players and overall enjoyers of the game a sigh of relief to see a genuine good game released to the market. I mean, like, come on, are we serious with some of these games? Anyways, Mario Superstar Baseball was the first of its kind to release to any Nintendo console, as it introduced the idea of baseball to the mix of sports games and provided a fresh sense of competition that mixed perfectly with the capabilities of the GameCube itself. Previously, Nintendo had featured Mario in a couple of other sports titles, such as Mario Tennis and Golf, that had been seen on the previous console, the N64. Seeing the Italian plumber himself and his friends compete in a baseball setting with a multitude of features was a extremely fun and interesting start to a more competitive and smooth gameplay style that put emphasis on character selection and skill that improved the gaming market as a whole. All of this combined with the goofy and simplistic Mario world, and you get one of the better games of the GameCube that could be easy to pick up and extremely fun to compete in with others in the family or friends on the street. Mario Superstar Baseball was a fantastic start to one of the more niche and underestimated eras of Nintendo, and it was a great foundation for the sports games moving forward. The year is now 2006, and Nintendo has finally realized that giving up on the GameCube is most likely the smartest decision and would allow them time to develop a new console that can hopefully erase the negative memories associated with the GameCube. However, with this motivation to do better, Nintendo would end up making one of their most popular and best-selling consoles in the entire history of the gaming sphere with the highly popular and well-known Wii console. This console would release in November of 2006, and would quickly begin to circulate amongst homes all over the globe who were looking for a simplistic, family-friendly console that could be enjoyed by almost anyone. Games such as Mario Kart Wii, Wii Party, and Wii Sports would all be introduced with extreme and heavy praise and would grow the Wii to the best-selling console at the time of its release. However, Nintendo, seeing this popularity, also began to consider new plans for the games to be released for this console. The majority of games released after the launch of the Wii were new and improved versions of previously released games for the GameCube that had not been given love initially. Some examples of these games would include games like Mario Strikers Charged and Super Smash Bros. Brawl, among many others. However, due to a specific game's popularity, it would be a no-brainer for Nintendo to step up to the plate, literally, and create a sequel for one of the most beloved games that many had been asking for ever since its initial release in 2005. And that game would of course be Mario Superstar Baseball, which would be released onto the Wii with new and improved features as Super Mario Sluggers in 2008. Now, with all of this knowledge about everything that occurred before the release of this game, we can finally get into why I believe this game is one of the best modern sports games. Right off the bat, before you even see the main menu screen of this game, you are shown one of the most hype and genuinely epic cinematics in the entire franchise that truly gets you excited to play every single time. I mean, just look at how Yoshi literally makes this insane play from center field while literal bombs are being thrown at him, and then how Luigi proceeds to get run over by DK while simultaneously catching the ball. If this intro doesn't get you overtly hyped to play this game, I have no idea what truly will, and is one of the very distinct memories I have about this game playing it as a kid. Anyways, getting into the game and its mechanics, it essentially works in a unique way to other sports games that came before it. As we can see in the cinematic, the beloved Nintendo characters all arrive to this random island in a boat. However, it is no random island and is instead an island that is filled to the brim with baseball fields and references. Instead of just traveling to different parts of the country, or world for that matter, to play different games, the characters have traveled to a island that was specifically made to play baseball, that features a total of 9 fully fleshed out stadiums with features completely unique to the character they are based off of. For instance, the traditional Mario Stadium is what you would expect from the Italian plumber himself, a truly basic and flavorless stadium that is a perfect introduction to the game and its mechanics. However, on the other side of the coin, there are fields such as Luigi's Mansion and Peach's Ice Garden, which completely change up the way the game is played to allow unique changes to the teams based off the stadium they play at. But I am getting way ahead of myself. As you see, there is a lot of stadiums to choose from, and upon choosing one, you are given a healthy selection of captains that can be selected to lead your team. 12 captains can be selected with their own personalities and team names, which adds extra flair to the game that was never really needed but is extremely nice. However, after the screen is where it gets crazy, as now as the captain has been selected, you are taken to a screen where you have to draft your team amongst a selection of 42 total characters, excluding the different colors of certain characters, which was the largest character roster in any Nintendo game. This game is such a fantastic step into diversity and genuine character development, as while we see the standard characters such as Bowser, Donkey Kong, and Peach, we see other characters that had either never been playable prior or had been completely lost to time. Some examples of these include the Pianta, which mind you literally uses a tree as his bat of choice, Kamek, King Boo, a wide range of the DK crew, and even oddities like Goomba, who has no hands to hold the bat. While this inclusion of a extremely wide variety of characters is admittedly necessary for baseball, the inclusion of all of these characters is one of the coolest additions in the game in my opinion. And even though some characters could be perceived as lazy choices, I still believe that this wide roster is amazing for the game, especially for characters who never seem to get enough love, such as Dark Bones. But anyways, each and every every single character additionally has their own stats that could be strategically drafted to fit a certain playstyle, which, while this does lead to some characters being statistically better than others, is a nice addition that allows one to balance their team for both batting and fielding. A really interesting system that is featured in this game additionally is the chemistry system, which essentially dictates whether or not certain characters will play well with each other if they are on the same team. For instance, characters that have good chemistry, such as Mario and Luigi, will be able to throw the ball faster to one another compared to those who have bad chemistry, such as Mario and Bowser, in which the ball will travel slower. So you can probably now see why drafting a team could be a lot to consider, especially considering the size of the roster, their stats, and how well they will work with one another, which is a fantastic feature that adds on to the genuine competitive side of this game while not being too pervasive on the casual enjoyer of the game, such as myself. With the complexity of the literal character roster out of the way, it's time to talk about the mechanics of this game, which are extremely unique and make it fun to play even beyond the simple game of baseball. When starting any game, you are given a coin toss to determine whether or not you are batting or fielding first, which can stir up the game ever so slightly if one was expecting to hit first, for example. Super Mario Sluggers is such a good idea for the Wii as a whole, as it implements the design of the Wii controller to imitate that of a baseball bat, especially with its marketing being directed towards its motion control features, which makes the idea of baseball even better in this sense. Baseball had been previously seen in Wii Sports prior, however, Nintendo clearly took the time to redefine and correct mistakes with their initial design to produce the fluidity of this game. The game feels extremely responsive, and whether you are pitching, batting, or fielding, the game immerses you into the experience in a way that Mario Superstar Baseball never could. This did lead to reports of numerous broken TVs, however, but hey, that's what the wrist strap is for, right? Anyways, the game plays just as you would expect any baseball game to play: bases, outs, and lots of foul balls. However, it has to add that Mario spin to it. Items are added into this game, which the batting team can use to disorientate outfielders or those attempting to make a play, with famous items such as shells, bomb-bombs, and bananas that are all used but do require skill. Additionally, star power is charged up over time that can be used on a pitch to serve a pitch unique to the character, such as a barrel in Donkey Kong's instance, or a rainbow ball in terms of Yoshi, or on a hit which could give it extra power that might be beneficial for those who have a lower batting stat. However, one thing I really enjoy about this game is the fact that home runs can be denied through the use of skill and character selection, and let me explain. You see, by choosing two characters who have good chemistry and sticking them in the outfield, the player can perform what is known as a buddy jump whenever a home run is hit their way. After this admittedly pretty epic animation plays for home runs, the player can immediately attempt to run and time the ball just right to stop any home run, and is a fantastic system in my opinion, as it does not allow the player to just stare hopelessly at the home run and instead would allow them to prevent it. However, depending on the stadium, a multitude of adverse effects could be put in the way to deny such a power, and even the items mentioned earlier could produce the same effect. So with the game and its mechanics out of the way, it's time to talk about the fields and or stadiums. The stadiums within this game take heavy inspiration from the available captains within this game, and each have their own unique playstyles and gimmicks that make them fun and distinctive from one another. For instance, Yoshi Park has pipes that lay all across the outfield that, if the ball is hit to, will transport it to a completely different and random pipe also in the field that could disorientate or assist the outfielders to getting the ball. Additionally, the field has a train that runs on the back wall, and if hit to, could cancel out the buddy jump, which is the technique we just discussed. Other fields are literally not even played on fields at all, which can be seen in stadiums like Daisy Cruiser, which has a literal kraken outside of the ship, and Peach Ice Garden, which literally takes place on a ice rink. I have no idea who approved of these fields or stadiums to be regulation, but hey, Lakitu doesn't really seem to be too bothered, so I guess it doesn't matter. Each and every stadium feels unique, and that is what I love so much about this game. Each and every one seems to be surrounding a captain, and each one has its own unique mechanics that the player must adjust to whilst playing the game. And even for those who just want to play baseball, Mario Stadium is right there that offers no gimmicks or special effects whatsoever, and it's a great balance in my opinion. Now there is one more feature that I believe is worth mentioning within this game, and that is the story mode, or as they call it, the challenge mode. This mode is extremely important, as not only is it used to unlock the majority of characters and captains within the game, but it also establishes a story that had not been previously seen within the base exhibition games. The story essentially goes as follows. Mario and his friends arrive on the island that was built by Peach for baseball, and the crew enjoys the sights of the island and the true beauty of it. However, Bowser and Bowser Jr. end up arising out of the nearby ocean with their own stadium and crashes into the island, cementing them as part of the island with their own stadium, and they bring their own minions and characters along with them completely uninvited. From this point on, the characters are in a never-ending battle with one another, pitting Mario's team against Bowser's, and eventually being settled at Bowser's home turf, in which he loses and Mario and everyone celebrates their victory. It is a very simple yet effective story that portrays the rivalry between these two characters in a competitive stance and understanding, and allows the game to perform because of it. But anyways, the challenge mode within this game provides a fantastic way to unlock characters and explore the island itself, and is a nice addition to the game that was never necessary but always appreciated. One final thing to mention before this video ends is the fact that this game also features Toy Field, which is a fun minigame that adds a little extra flavor to the game, among other minigames within the minigame tab as well, that only serve to aid the experience and not let the game ultimately become stale. Phew, okay. This is the entire reason as to why I believe that Mario Super Sluggers is one of the best modern sports games in this era of gaming. This game fits into so many different niches, playstyles, and genuinely provides one of the most in-depth and enjoyable experiences that we have ever seen from a Mario sports game. And ever since the decline of modern sports games such as Madden and 2K, it is nice to go back to these games and genuinely enjoy them once again. I am so sorry if I missed anything. If there's anything you guys want to add or share with your experiences with Mario Sluggers in the comments, I would love to hear it. But until next time, peace.